What's going on, everybody? This is Weekly Leadership Talks with Dustin, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that's the subject of focus. Now, I remember back to my executive life that there was a difference maker between the ones who are extremely successful and the ones who are not. And I think that difference was their ability to focus on goals, to get clear about their objectives, and to define their expectations, not only for themselves, but for their teams. But when you think about focus, if you're professionally focused, then oftentimes you're probably personally focused. People who are not focused in life typically are late to meetings, are late to replies, always messy, always disorganized, sticky notes everywhere. We've all seen them, we've all worked with them. And in fact, you may be the one who is disorganized. But that doesn't mean that it's impossible to gain clarity to get that focus that you need. What it really starts to boil down to is how well can you stop and work slow to move faster. Okay, I want to say that again. It's can you stop and move slow to work faster. That is one of the hardest things when it comes to being very organized and when it comes to being very efficient and when it comes to having good focus, is the ability to pull back, to slow down so you can begin to work faster. What happens is we get so inundated with so many tasks, so many emails, our personal life, our bosses hounding on us, that we get overwhelmed, we get anxious, we get nervous. And I guarantee the majority of you have felt that way at some point in time. But if you ever notice those individuals who are successful, who can work through those adversities, oftentimes they are extremely focused, more focused than anyone else in the room. Millionaires don't become millionaires by not having a focus on becoming a millionaire. Same thing for billionaires, same thing for entrepreneurs. So when you look at the position you're in, regardless if it's a leadership position or not, you have the ability to become focused in everything that you're doing. So I want to talk just a little bit about 3 easy things you can do to be focused. Number 1, spend time with yourself. One of the biggest mistakes we make as human beings is we don't spend time with ourselves. We don't get to know ourselves. We don't figure out how we operate. We don't figure out what we like, what we don't like. We also don't figure out what works best for us. So many times as I see people go through my coaching program, it's a lot of times telling me like, this doesn't work for me. This doesn't work for me. This doesn't work for me. Okay, great. But what does work for you? So if you only focus on the negatives, then you can't find the positives. And again, the word focused. So start to focus on those positives that work for you. Start to focus on getting to know yourself. Start to focus on getting to figure out who you are and how you operate. When you have that clarity and you have that perspective, then you can begin to focus on other things, which leads me to point number 2. Write it down. And I'm not talking about text. I'm not talking about digital journal, these iPads or the digital writers. I'm talking about a piece of paper and a pen, pencil, and your thoughts, and write it out so you read it out loud. When it comes to getting focused, we oftentimes put the thoughts in the directions in our head and it just doesn't work. We can see it in our head, but we can't physically understand it or process it the way we can when we write it out. So if you want to gain clarity and you want to gain focus, begin to write out your goals. Create the habit of checking them off, crossing them off. I love when I meet the people who love list checking. They take their pen and they just say, that's the greatest feeling, is marking off that task off the list. It gets them focused. It keeps them focused. And when you actually write out what it is you're focused on and you read it back to yourself, you're going to say, man, that kind of sounds silly. I need to get better clarity on that. Or say, no, that's actually absolutely what I want it to be. Now you have a focus, which takes me to point number 3. Set the objective and create the timeline. I'm going to say that again. Set the objective and create the timeline. One of the aspects of focus is the ability to create the objective and what you want to accomplish. That means you have the clarifying thoughts, the clarifying ideas on what exactly it is that you need to do. Create the objective. Set the timeline. Worst thing we can do is set a really good goal without a timeline on it. And we've all been there before. We procrastinated. We see a lot of procrastinators out there. You have to be willing to set timelines and find a way to create the accountability. And I guess if I was to add a point number 4, it would be accountability, but we'll get to that in just a second. But you have to be able to create the accountability for yourself in order to find the right timeline. So when you're defining your goals and you're getting focused about life, you're getting focused about your career, do you set timelines on it, or do you act as if time is there forever? So one of the things that successful people do extremely well is they focus on a timeline. They tell themselves, I'm going to create a stretch timeline and I'm going to create a realistic timeline. Okay, write those two things down. Create a stretch timeline and a realistic timeline. Your stretch timeline is something that may be impossible. You don't want to rush the work and you don't want to jeopardize the quality, but you want to stretch yourself to grow and create stronger abilities in your potential to focus. So maybe create a stretch timeline that's just a little bit unrealistic for yourself. And when you hit it, then you'll realize that you're not being unrealistic enough. And you can probably put a little more pressure on, which again creates better focus. Your other timeline is the one that's going to be more realistic, a project that probably will take that amount of time based on your experience or your knowledge. The worst thing to do is not set a timeline, because you're going to forget about it. Life priorities are going to happen, family is going to happen, profession is going to happen, and you're going to become further away from that task, which takes you away from what we're talking about today, being focused. So create that timeline and make sure that you clarify the objective so it matches your timeline. We're going to circle back to number 4 earlier, which was accountability. We'll add an additional one today. Accountability starts with us. You have to be able to hold yourself accountable. You have to be able to take feedback to become accountable. You have to. And if you don't like feedback, and if you're always defensive or you always struggle to hear feedback, then you're not going to stay focused in life. Because the only thing that you will focus on is distractions, negativity, and things that take you away from becoming better. The most successful people that I have talked with who are worth millions and millions and millions of dollars all can take feedback very well. I want to say that again. They all can take feedback very well. And these are some of the most successful people that I've met in business and life and wealth and financial freedom. They had the ability to take feedback in order to pivot and become better. Why on earth would you not want that? Why on earth would you shy away from feedback that may get you to the $1 million that you're chasing, or may get you to the investment that you're chasing, or may get you the client that you want to land? Or if you're in a leadership position, it may get the trust and buy-in from your team. So learn to have accountability, and accountability starts with yourself. Be able to take feedback. Don't get all hurt about it. Don't get over analytical about it. Don't take it personal. You will know when it's personal, because it's going to be personal to you. That means you're in a ready stage. That means you're in a growth stage. That means you're ready to get to the next step. So create the accountability for yourself by starting with yourself. The second aspect is find somebody who will hold you accountable. Find that accountability partner. It is so huge and crucial to have an accountability partner. There has to be somebody who's willing to hurt your feelings. Say that again. There has to be somebody who's willing to hurt your feelings for you to get better. If your friends are telling you things that only makes you feel good, then they're not really your friends. They're not helping you grow. I want friends who are not afraid to hurt my feelings, because they know at the end of it, there's going to be a better version of myself that emerges. So if your friends never hurt your feelings, then they're not telling you the truth. That's a big key component with accountability. Accountability doesn't necessarily need to hurt, but it needs to sting just enough so that way you grow. There needs to be something there that resonates in your mind that says, hey, this isn't working and I need to get to the next step. So find an accountability partner. Create the focus that you need in life. Okay? If you can't find that focus, then maybe you need to get more clear about your objective. Maybe you're not putting a timeline on the work that you need to. Maybe personally, you're putting off things that you know you shouldn't do. Maybe you're putting your health off. Maybe you're putting your marriage off. Maybe you're putting whatever it is that's creating such an impact in your life that you know just needs to be done, but you keep putting it off. Start to gain the focus that you need. Start to gain the clarity that you should deserve. And start to get real about life and focus down on what it is you need to do.